Ladies and gentlemen, we're now a month away from the MLB trade deadline, which means that teams gotta start thinking, are we buyers or sellers? Buyers would mean that we believe we can go all in. Sellers would mean we realize that we don't have an opportunity to accomplish much with our current roster. So we're going to trade away the players that we have on the final year of their contract for younger prospects that can help us win in the future when we do have a roster that we can accomplish something with. On the other hand, buyers would be teams that are going all in. They're going to buy these players off of the sellers in exchange for prospects that will help the sellers in the long run. Now, a couple of years ago, something very interesting happened that completely flipped this concept on its head. In 2022, the MLB expanded its playoffs to now have 3 wildcard teams that all get in. They don't have a winner go home wildcard game anymore. They have a wildcard series and more teams, which allow more teams to get in. So we saw last year, we saw a 6 seed play a 5 seed in the World Series, the D-backs and the Rangers, which means that if you have a chance at getting in, you have a chance at accomplishing a lot, which is going to encourage teams to sell. Encourage teams to buy. On the other hand, we saw something do the exact opposite. We saw the Angels, who should have been sellers. They thought we were buyers because they had Shohei Ohtani on the last year of his contract. They thought they should buy instead of trading Ohtani. They refused to trade Ohtani. They ended up trading away half of their top 10 prospects to try to put a supporting cast around Ohtani. It backfired, and now they're one of the worst teams in baseball with a high payroll and a horrible farm system. So falsely deciding to be buyers can ruin your roster, can ruin your team. As of the beginning of July, there are 13 teams in the National League that are either in playoff spots or within 5 games of a playoff spot. So there are 13 teams that hypothetically can be buyers. How do they know if they should be buyers or sellers? How do they know if they should go all in or if they should wait for another year when they have a better opportunity to make a run? All these teams have opportunities. In theory, they could do what the Rangers and Diamondbacks did. So I'm not going to make a hour-and-a-half video now, but I'm going to go through 2 teams that I believe should be buyers and why, and 2 teams that I believe should be sellers and why. Here we go.
63rd season. It's happened! The Texas Rangers win the World Series!
So we're going to kick it off with the Chicago Cubs. As of June 27th, the Chicago Cubs are 5 games out, which is the most out of these 13 teams that we mentioned. However, there's one similarity to one of the teams that made a run that I love about the Chicago Cubs. If you look at the D-backs' big run out of the 6 seed to the World Series, it wasn't just by coincidence. It wasn't just they got hot at the right time. What they did is one of the things that I emphasize the most in the playoffs. They looked at the pitching matchups. In the playoffs, pitching matchups mean so much. If your 1 through 3 pitchers are going to outpitch the other team's 1 through 3 pitchers, you have a huge advantage. Because the 5th pitcher isn't going to be relevant because there's so many off days in the playoffs. The 4th pitcher isn't going to be relevant in the playoffs because you don't need to win every game in the playoffs. You only need to win 1 more game than the other team to win the series. So if your 1 through 3 pitchers can win 2 or 3 games, you're going to almost always win the series. And that's what the D-backs did last year. They had Merrill Kelly, Brandon Pfaadt, and Zach Gallen pitch out of their minds in the playoffs, and that's all they needed to beat teams that were better than them. And also on the Rangers, they had Jordan Montgomery and Nathan Eovaldi getting them 2 wins guaranteed every time. They were winning game 1 and 2 and 5 and 6 every single time, and that's what allowed them to beat teams that were better than them in the playoffs. Now, how is that relevant to the Cubs? If you look at the Cubs' rotation, it's not perfect. However, their first 3 guys are great. There are only 30 starting pitchers in the MLB with ERAs of 3.05 or lower. 3 out of those 30 are on the Cubs: Jameson Taillon, Chado Imanaga, and Javier Assad. If those 3 guys can go out there and get you 2 or 3 wins every single time, you're going to beat teams that are better than you. I think if they play their cards right, those 3 can carry them all the way to the NLCS. If you're winning, going up 2-1 or 3-0 in a series, you're going to win the series. In the wildcard, you need to win 2 out of 3. In the DS, you need to win 3 out of 5. And then the NLCS, you need to win 4 out of 7 against the Dodgers. It's going to be harder. But they could definitely upset teams with that trio in the wildcard series and in the divisional series. And furthermore, their biggest weakness as a team is the bullpen. However, they can address that very easily because their roster is stacked in specific positions. They have 4 hitters on their major league roster that are hitting well above league average of OPS. The average is about 700. These guys are all above 725. 4 guys who are all outfielders. In addition, 2 of their top 4 prospects are also outfielders. So they have 6 outfielders that teams will value. You don't need more than 4 outfielders, maybe 5 on your roster. So they can easily trade one of these prospects and one of the guys on their major league roster to go get that bullpen help. I really like the Chicago Cubs. If they get in, they're going to make some noise. I think that they can be this year's Arizona Diamondbacks. My first sell team is the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Pittsburgh Pirates are only 2.5 games back, which is as much as the Cubs. However, their roster is constructed a bit differently than the Cubs. They have a very good young core. They have guys in the major leagues right now, such as Keller, Jerry Jones, Skeens, Gonzalez, and O'Neill Cruz, who are young guys who are still developing and are going to develop into a very good core. In addition, they're getting reinforcements. They have 3 top 100 prospects who will be big league ready within the year. So let this core develop of 8 guys who are going to be really good for a really long time. Don't trade in these guys to try to rush the process. Let the core develop. In addition, they have 5 veterans in Aroldis Chapman, Perez, Andrew McCutcheon, Rowdy Tellez, and Taylor, who will be free agents at the end of this season, who can be sold to buyers to add to these young core. They can get prospects for these guys. They can get a lot of great prospects for the names I mentioned. So add to this young core, let the core develop, let your team become a real contender in the future. Don't rush it. My second buy team is an unsung World Series contender, 2.5 games back as well. The Arizona Diamondbacks. They can be the Diamondbacks of last year again this year. First of all, they're a good team that had a slow start. They started 25-32, and since then they're 14-9. They found it. They're rolling. Number 2, as we mentioned with the Cubs, if the front half of your if the front half of your rotation is getting you wins, you're going to beat teams that are better than you if the front half of your rotation can outpace the front half of their rotation. Montgomery, Gallen, and Kelly were the 3 best starting pitchers in the playoffs last year. They're all on the Diamondbacks. If those guys can get it going, Montgomery's starting slow because he didn't have a real spring training. Kelly's injured. But if those guys can come together and get it going, they're going to be a buzzsaw in the playoffs. You don't want to face the Diamondbacks in the playoffs. In addition, both of their top 2 prospects are shortstops. They already have 4 good young infielders in Newman, Ketel Marte, Perdomo, and Blaze Alexander. They don't need both of those shortstops. They can easily trade one, maybe one of the guys that are already in the major league roster, to get guys to help out in the outfield and in the back end of the bullpen. In addition, they only have 2 good bullpen arms. That's why their bullpen's struggling. They have Paul Sewald, who has an 0.61 ERA, and Ryan Thompson, who has a 1.13 ERA. And these guys, they're pitching about every other game in the regular season because you play 6 or 7 games a week in the regular season. In the playoffs, they're playing 4 or 5 games a week. So if these guys can pitch 3 or 4 games a week, in the playoffs, they can pitch almost every game. So if your starter can get the game to the 6th inning, these guys can cover 2/3 of your bullpen and are going to be these insane pitchers who have an 0.61 ERA and 1.13 ERA. So their bullpen's definitely going to play up in the playoffs. We saw it happen last year. It's not a different roster. If they could get one bullpen arm from trading one of those shortstop prospects, they're going to be sitting pretty. And 5, they should buy because they're not going to get a better opportunity. 4 of their best players, Kelly, Sewell, Walker, and Peterson, are aging in their mid-30s. It's go big or go home in the 2024 season for the Arizona Diamondbacks. And my final team, my second sell team, call me a biased Yankees fan, at 1.5 games back, the New York Mets should sell it all. First of all, not a single one of their starting pitchers has an ERA below 3.25. And besides for Severino, nobody else has an ERA in that rotation below 4.15. They're going to get killed in a playoff series. We previously discussed how important the front half of your rotation is in a playoff series. There's no way that they can go blow for blow with a team that they're going to face in the wildcard series, which is going to be the Braves or the Brewers probably. There's no way they can go blow for blow with either of those teams with this rotation. They're going to lose in 2, at best 3 games. If they go all in, it's going to end very quickly. Not worth it. Number 2, they're expected to get major reinforcements of 4 top 100 prospects within the next year or so. They have Williams, who's the number 32 prospect in baseball, Gilbert, who's the number 40 prospect in baseball, Scott, who's the number 54, and Luis Angel Acuna, Ronald Acuna's brother, is the 76th prospect in baseball. Let these guys develop into very solid young core. We all know that the best teams, the teams that have the most success, are the teams who the core is homegrown, and then they go out and spend big money to put the finishing touches on it. That's how the Astros have their dynasty. That's how the Dodgers got so good. The Mets have that money. We know that Steve Cohen can't spend the big bucks. So if they develop this core within their own system and they're homegrown, then they go out and they put the finishing touches on this, expect them to be very good for a very long time. And they can really add to this because they have 7 veterans. Alonso, Bader, JD Martinez, Luis Severino, Manaea, Diekman, and Smith, who will be free agents at the end of the season that can be sold for prospects to add to this young core. They could get a lot for the Polar Bear. They could get a lot for Alonso. Martinez is also hitting the ball well. Bader's also overperforming. They can get a lot of prospects, a lot of very good young value for these 7 guys. They could build a very strong young core, have it grow from the bottom up, and then Steve Cohen's going to go out and put the finishing touches on it. That's going to be a World Series contending team. That's not what we saw them do when they just signed JV. They just signed Scherzer. That's not how baseball works. This is how baseball works. This is how you win in baseball. This is how you build a culture in baseball. Let these guys develop. Trade the guys that aren't going to do anything for you now for more people that will develop, more players that will develop. And as a Yankee fan, I'd love to see them trade guys now, but this kind of terrifies me if they do take this path. The Mets are a big-time sell team, even though they're really within striking distance. They're 1.5 games out, and I'm afraid that they're going to buy because people are afraid of losing their jobs. They're afraid that they don't have enough job security to wait until all these players develop, and that would ruin it. But if they sell, look out for the New York Mets.
63rd season.